Everyone knows the name Michael Jordan. The iconic slam dunks that defied gravity. The signature fadeaway that was utterly unstoppable. The championship rings that sealed his legacy as the greatest of all time. We see him in magazines, on television, in documentaries, and he appears flawless, a man for whom victory seemed to be an inevitable force of nature. But the story the world knows is a highlight reel. It is the finished product, polished and perfect. It's not the raw, painful, and deeply human journey that led to all that glory. The truth began not with a triumph, but with a moment of absolute, soul-crushing failure. This isn't just a story about a basketball player. It's about a young man from Wilmington, North Carolina, whose greatest defeat became the catalyst for his most powerful lessons in life. Lessons that prove our past does not have to be our prison. This story is a testament to the fact that the person you become is far more important than the circumstances you were born into, and that the biggest heroes are often forged in the fires of their greatest moments of despair. Before he was a global phenomenon, Michael was simply a young boy with a competitive fire burning in his soul, a fire that was ignited and nurtured by his family. His mother, Dolores Jordan, was a pillar of strength and a voice of unconditional support, while his father, James Jordan, was a patient mentor and a tireless supporter of his children's passions. The family home, a modest place in Wilmington, North Carolina, was filled with a powerful love and a culture of competition. But the true heart of this family was in their backyard. This was Michael's first court, a sacred space where he would battle his older brother, Larry. Their one-on-one games were not friendly scrimmages. They were ferocious, high-stakes battles where every point was earned and every loss felt like a profound defeat. Larry was bigger, stronger, and often won, and his victories fueled an insatiable hunger in Michael to improve. He would spend hours analyzing his brother's moves, replaying them in his mind, and then practice relentlessly until he could counter them flawlessly. The family home, a symbol of their unity, also served as the training ground for the competitive spirit that would define a generation. It was the fall of his sophomore year, a time filled with anticipation and excitement. Michael, full of confidence and passion, tried out for the varsity basketball team at Laney High School. He was convinced this was his moment. He had worked hard and felt ready to step onto a bigger stage and prove his potential. He walked into the school's gymnasium after practice, his heart pounding in his chest with nervous energy, and saw a crowd of students gathered around a bulletin board. This was it, the list of players who made the team. He pushed through the crowd, his eyes scanning the paper for his name. He saw his taller friend, Harvest Leroy, and felt a surge of hope. But as he continued to search, the feeling of hope slowly turned into a cold, sinking dread. His name was not on the list. The coach, a pragmatic man focused on immediate team needs, had chosen to favor a taller player, a decision that was logical but felt like a personal betrayal. The humiliation was immediate and brutal, a public rejection that felt like a physical blow. He felt his stomach drop, his throat tighten, and his legs go numb. All his dreams of playing with the big boys seemed to vanish in a single, painful moment, leaving him with an empty space where his confidence used to be. The walk home was a blur. Every step felt heavier than the last, and the sound of his own footsteps was the only sound in a world that had suddenly gone silent. That night, a heartbroken Michael went home and locked himself in his room, weeping uncontrollably. He lay there, his body shaking with sobs, replaying the moment over and over in his mind. The feeling of being not good enough was a crushing weight that suffocated him. His father, James, found him and, with a quiet wisdom, told him that he could either let this moment defeat him or use it as a powerful lesson. But it was his mother, Dolores, who delivered the most profound message. She gently knocked and entered, sitting with him in the quiet darkness of his room. She didn't offer empty platitudes or tell him it would be okay. Instead, she looked him in the eye and said, "Son, you have a choice to make right now. You can let this rejection define you, or you can let it fuel you. Her words were a turning point, transforming his sorrow into a fierce, burning resolve. The tears stopped, and a new fire ignited within him. In that moment of profound clarity, he made a vow to himself. He would never again allow someone else's opinion or a single setback to determine his destiny. He would work so hard that no coach, no opponent, and no circumstance would ever be able to stop him again. This was the moment his pain became his purpose, the moment he chose to write a new beginning on the blank page of his future. He got out of bed, a new man forged from the ashes of his despair. From that day forward, the basketball court became his sanctuary and his laboratory. He was often the first person in the gym in the morning, arriving at 4:30 a.m., while the rest of the world was still asleep. The gym was cold and quiet, a sacred space where the only sounds were the rhythmic bounce of the ball and the squeak of his shoes against the polished floor. He would run drills, practice his jump shots from every conceivable angle, and push his body to its absolute limits, all alone. This wasn't a punishment, it was a chosen mission, a personal war against the voice inside him that said he wasn't good enough. His father, James, seeing this burning desire, knew exactly what to do. He went out and built a new, stronger court in their backyard, complete with a floodlit hoop. This court became Michael's private laboratory for greatness. It was a place where he could fail 1,000 times without anyone watching or judging, and each missed shot was simply a data point, a step towards a flawless execution. He would stay out there for hours, his hands raw and bleeding, his muscles screaming, until he got it right. The silence of the night and the relentless pursuit of perfection were his only companions. This private, relentless work, unseen by the world, was where the legend was truly forged. He was no longer just practicing. He was transforming himself, molding his body and mind into a tool that would never again be considered not good enough. The sanctuary of his backyard court was also the arena for his fiercest and most personal competition, his older brother, Larry. Larry was not only taller but also a skilled and highly competitive player in his own right, and he never held back. Their one-on-one games were not just for fun. They were brutal, high-stakes battles that often ended with Larry winning. These defeats were not just physical. They were deeply personal and painful for Michael. The feeling of losing to his brother, the one person who knew him better than anyone, was a constant, searing reminder of how far he still had to go. Michael's losses to his brother fueled an insatiable hunger to improve. He would return to the court, late into the night, replaying Larry's moves in his mind and practicing until he could counter them flawlessly. The fierce trash talk and the physical intensity of their games were a crucible that forged Michael's competitive spirit and taught him how to push beyond his limits, not just on the basketball court, but in every single aspect of his life. It was a rivalry born out of love and mutual respect, but it was also a relentless and unforgiving training ground where Michael learned that true greatness is earned, not given. That backyard court, under the watchful eyes of his father and with the spirit of competition with his brother, was where the unstoppable force we know today was truly born. Michael wasn't just working on his basketball skills, he was working on his character. He learned that discipline and consistency were more important than raw talent. He learned that failure was not the opposite of success, but a crucial part of the journey. In addition to his relentless training, he also experienced a significant physical and emotional transformation. The boy who was told no was still there, but he was now layered with an armor of resilience. His hard work coincided with a significant growth spurt, and he went from a good player to an unstoppable force. His legs grew stronger, his jump higher, and his body more powerful. When he tried out for the team again the following year, the coach was stunned by his metamorphosis. He not only gave him a spot, but made him the team's best player. His teammates saw him as a leader not because of his talent, but because of his unwavering commitment. He had proven to everyone, and most importantly to himself, that the boy who was rejected a year ago was gone, replaced by a man who would never be defeated again. That bulletin board, once a symbol of his despair, had become a monument to his courage. Michael's transformation was not confined to his high school. He had become a local phenomenon, a player whose talent and intensity were undeniable. His unwavering commitment to his craft caught the attention of college recruiters, including the legendary coach Dean Smith of the University of North Carolina. Dean Smith saw something in Michael that went far beyond his raw athletic ability. He saw the fire, the discipline, and the unbreakable will that was forged in his parents' backyard. Michael earned a scholarship to UNC, one of the most prestigious basketball programs in the country, a place where legends are not just born, but meticulously created. Here, surrounded by some of the best young players in the world, his work ethic became even more legendary. While other freshmen were adjusting to college life, a task that for most is overwhelming, Michael was in the gym, putting in extra hours and demanding more from himself than any coach ever could. He challenged his teammates, pushed them to their limits, and became a leader not through words, but through his unwavering example. He wasn't just there to be good. He was there to become the very best version of himself, a man who refused to be held back by his past. Michael's dedication paid off in a moment that would change his life forever and serve as a symbol for every single lesson he had learned. It was the 1982 NCAA championship game, and with just seconds left on the clock, UNC was down by 1 point to Georgetown. The ball was passed to a freshman, number 23, who stood at the top of the key. That young man was Michael Jordan. In that moment, he wasn't just a player. He was the embodiment of every early morning workout, every late-night session in his parents' backyard, and every single tear he had shed after being cut from his high school team. He took the shot, and the ball swished through the net. UNC won the championship. That shot wasn't a stroke of luck or a moment of pure talent. It was the direct, undeniable result of every moment he had chosen to turn his pain into power. It was the moment he proved to the world, and more importantly to himself, that the past does not determine your future, your response to it does. It was the first time the public saw the true payoff of his unseen work, and it was a promise of the legendary career that was yet to come. The lessons he learned from his past, lessons of resilience, hard work, and a relentless will to win, seemed to culminate in the ultimate triumph. He had conquered the NBA, leading the Chicago Bulls to 3 consecutive championships. He had become a global icon, a legend in his prime. But in 1993, the unthinkable happened. His father, his anchor and closest friend, James Jordan, was tragically murdered. The loss was a devastating blow that shattered Michael's world. The joy he once found on the basketball court seemed to fade, replaced by a profound grief that no amount of victory could ever fill. In a shocking move that stunned the world, he announced his retirement from basketball. He was at the peak of his power, a figure universally considered unstoppable, yet he walked away from the game that had given him everything. It was a new beginning, not by choice, but by a heartbreaking necessity. His decision to leave was not simply about grief, it was also about honoring his father. James had always been a baseball fan, and playing baseball had always been a shared dream between father and son. Michael, driven by a new, powerful purpose, decided to chase that dream. He signed a contract with the Chicago White Sox organization, a move that was met with a mix of awe and skepticism. He had to learn a new sport from the ground up, to be a rookie all over again, and to face a new kind of failure. The media mocked his struggles at the plate, and critics were quick to call his baseball career a foolish mistake. He batted a measly .202 in his first season. The same man who could score at will against the best athletes in the world was now struggling to get on base. But even in this new arena, he applied the very same lessons he learned as a high school sophomore. He showed up before anyone else and stayed late, swinging the bat in the dim light of the stadium. He embraced the struggle, refusing to be defined by his lack of immediate success. He had chosen to prove that he wasn't just a great basketball player, but a great athlete, and a man whose purpose went far beyond the sport he had mastered. He had to learn to fail and get up again, a lesson he thought he had already mastered. The baseball experiment, however, was always more about the journey than the destination. It was about finding a way to cope with an unimaginable loss and honoring a bond that had been tragically broken. His time away from the court allowed him to heal and reconnect with the game he loved. It reminded him of why he started playing in the first place, and it reignited the fire that had dimmed after his father's death. His desire to compete, to win, to be the best, was reawakened. So, in 1995, with a simple fax that read, "I'm back," Michael Jordan announced his return to the Chicago Bulls. It was a return that was both a continuation of his legacy and a completely new beginning, a testament to the fact that you can always go home again, especially when you carry the lessons from your past with you. By 1997, Michael Jordan had returned to his throne, leading the Chicago Bulls to another dominant season. His comeback had been a resounding success, culminating in another championship, and now he was in the midst of another grueling NBA Finals, this time battling the formidable Utah Jazz. The series was a physical and mental grind, a test of will between two powerhouse teams. The series was tied at 2 games apiece, and the pivotal 5th game was in Salt Lake City, Utah, a hostile environment for any visiting team. The night before the game, the Bulls were staying at a hotel, and Michael came down with a mysterious illness that left him pale, weak, and barely able to stand. He was nauseous and feverish, his body shaking with chills. His personal trainer, Tim Grover, and the team doctors diagnosed it as a stomach virus or food poisoning, and his fever spiked to over 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 39 degrees Celsius. He was in no condition to play, his body screaming at him to rest, but the voice of his past, the one that had told him to use his pain as fuel, was louder. He spent the day in bed, dehydrated and drained, but as the clock ticked closer to game time, something within him, that same fierce fire that had ignited on a high school court, began to burn. The team trainer saw his body as something that was breaking down, but Michael saw his body as an obstacle he could overcome, just another opponent to defeat. He was going to play, no matter the cost. He stepped onto the court looking utterly spent, his face ashen, his movements slow and deliberate. It was immediately clear to everyone in the arena that something was wrong. His team worried, the commentators questioned his ability to compete, and the Utah Jazz, knowing he was sick, tried to exploit his weakness. They hounded him on defense, forcing him to work for every single shot. Early in the game, he was clearly struggling, but as the game wore on, a quiet determination took over. He wasn't just playing against the Jazz, he was playing against his own body. He wasn't going to let a fever define his performance, just as he didn't let a coach's rejection define his career. With every missed shot and every exhausted step, he found a deeper reserve of strength. He leaned on his teammates for support and pushed through the physical pain, showing a level of courage that went far beyond the game itself. It was a display of sheer willpower that transcended his talent. He refused to give in to his sickness, choosing instead to fight every second of the game. The final moments of the game became the stuff of legend. With the score tied and just seconds remaining, Michael had the ball. The entire arena was on its feet, and the pressure was immense. He was clearly exhausted, hunched over and visibly fighting for breath, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He knew what he had to do. With the ball in his hands, he drove to the top of the key, using his famous fake to create a bit of space. He then hit the game-winning three-pointer with seconds left on the clock, a shot so legendary it seemed to defy logic. The shot, the entire game, was a pure triumph of will. He had scored an astounding 38 points while fighting a severe illness, and secured a crucial win for the Bulls. After the game, he collapsed into his teammate Scottie Pippen's arms, a man who had given everything he had to win. He proved that even at your weakest, your will can still be your greatest weapon. The flu game, became a powerful symbol of his refusal to let circumstances define his outcome. It was the ultimate demonstration of his famous mantra: the minute you get away from the fundamentals, whether it's in practice or in a game, you get away from what makes you a good player. And even though he was physically compromised, his fundamentals, his mental fortitude, and his will to win were stronger than ever. The same relentless will that allowed Michael Jordan to push through a debilitating illness in the finals was the very core of his leadership. His refusal to be defined by his past was not just visible in his own performance. It was the foundation of the culture he built within the Chicago Bulls, a culture of unparalleled excellence. He was notoriously demanding of his teammates, pushing them relentlessly in practice. The stories of his intensity are legendary, tales of a man who held his team to the same impossible standard of excellence he set for himself. He didn't just ask for more. He demanded it with a fierce, unwavering gaze and a level of trash talk that was as sharp as his jump shot. He expected the same level of commitment he gave, and his intensity sometimes caused friction. Scott Burrell, Steve Kerr, and even his closest teammate Scottie Pippen often found themselves on the receiving end of his sharp tongue and competitive fire. He was not just a teammate. He was the leader, and his expectations were impossibly high. He understood that greatness was not a solo act, and that to win championships, everyone had to be willing to suffer and sacrifice. He was a master of psychological warfare, both on opponents and on his own teammates, and he would often challenge them both physically and verbally, pushing them past their comfort zones and forcing them to become better. He was, in essence, a reflection of the lessons his father and brother had taught him in their backyard. You have to be willing to face challenges and be beaten down in order to grow stronger. He didn't just lead by example. He led with a fierce expectation that every single person on his team was capable of greatness, and he was there to make sure they reached it. His leadership style was a direct result of his own experiences. He was once told he wasn't good enough, and he was determined to ensure that his teammates would never let a moment of weakness define their legacy. His desire for perfection became the engine that drove the entire team to greatness. And it was a direct line from the boy who cried in his room to the man who demanded excellence from every person around him. The very same intensity he used to train alone in the dark was now being used to forge a team into an unstoppable force, a force that went on to dominate the NBA. His competitive nature was a double-edged sword. It made him a difficult teammate at times, but it was also the reason they became champions. Every single practice was a battle, and every single game was a war, and he was the general who commanded the troops with an iron will forged in the fire of his own pain. He would not allow anyone to rest on their laurels, to take a day off, or to lose a single moment to complacency, because he knew that true champions are made when no one is watching. This demanding approach to leadership, while sometimes difficult for his teammates to endure, was the very reason for their dynasty. He set a new standard for what it meant to be a professional athlete and a leader. He understood that a team's success was built on trust, and he earned that trust not through kind words, but through his unwavering reliability in the most high-stakes moments. When the game was on the line, everyone knew the ball was going to Michael, and he would deliver. His leadership wasn't about being liked. It was about being respected. He earned that respect every single day by outworking everyone, by taking accountability for his mistakes, and by never, ever giving up. This intense focus on accountability and discipline was a lesson he learned from his father, who taught him that a man's word and his work ethic were the most important things he possessed. Michael embodied this philosophy, and he expected his teammates to do the same. He believed that the only way to overcome the psychological pressure of the biggest games was to be so prepared that there was no room for doubt. His leadership was a direct extension of his personal journey, a living testament to the fact that the challenges you overcome in silence become the strengths you wield in public. The Bulls became a reflection of their leader, a team that was tough, resilient, and utterly fearless. They were a team that had been forged in the fires of Michael's competitive nature, and they were unbreakable. He taught them that the mental game was more important than the physical one, and that if you believed in yourself and in your team, you could achieve anything. The championship banners that hang in the rafters of the United Center in Chicago are a testament to this leadership. But his influence didn't end when he left the court for good. The lessons of hard work, relentless competition, and brand building he learned as a player became the blueprint for his second act as a business icon. The Jordan brand, a partnership with Nike, wasn't just a line of shoes. It was an extension of his identity. It was built on the core values of excellence, perseverance, and a refusal to fail. Michael applied the same intensity and dedication to his business ventures as he did to his game. He understood that a brand is more than a logo. It is a promise. The Jordan brand promised to inspire, to motivate, and to empower people to overcome their own obstacles, just as he did. The success of the brand was a direct result of his personal story, a powerful narrative that resonated with millions of people who wanted to believe that they, too, could rise from obscurity to greatness. His journey from a high school reject to a global business mogul is the ultimate testament to his most profound lesson. Your past does not define your future. It's the simple truth that a person's character, forged in the fires of their greatest struggles, can take them from a backyard court to a global stage and beyond. This is the real story of Michael Jordan, a man who, even in the midst of his greatest triumphs, never forgot the lesson learned from his first, most painful defeat. He proved that the person you become is far more important than the circumstances you were born into, and that the skills learned in the face of adversity are universally applicable, leading to success in any field. His legacy is not just in the championship banners, but in the millions of people he inspired to believe in themselves and to push past their own limits. His competitive spirit, born from the pain of rejection, was not a fleeting emotion. It was a fundamental force that he applied to every challenge, every partnership, and every business decision he ever made. He had to learn how to lead, how to sell, and how to build an empire from the ground up, all skills he had unknowingly perfected in the quiet solitude of his teenage years, learning to rebound from failure and build a legacy that will last forever. The Jordan brand's meteoric rise to global dominance was not an accident. It was a masterclass in brand building. Michael and Nike's partnership was revolutionary because it was built not on a fleeting trend or a temporary popularity, but on the enduring power of his story. The commercials for the shoes didn't just show him playing basketball. They showed him soaring through the air, defying gravity, and overcoming his opponents with a grace and power that was unmatched. They sold not just a product, but a feeling. The feeling of limitless potential, of overcoming adversity, of being the best version of yourself. The brand was a direct reflection of Michael's personal journey, and it resonated with a global audience because the lessons he learned were universal. He understood that his story was his most powerful asset, and he used it to create a brand that was more than just athletic gear. It was a symbol of hope and aspiration, a reminder that with enough hard work and dedication, you too could achieve the impossible. He proved that a legacy could be built not just with your hands and feet, but with your mind and spirit, and that the lessons learned on a dusty backyard court could be applied to the boardrooms of the world's largest corporations. The authenticity of his story was the true engine of the brand's success, and he never compromised on the values that got him to the top. He was a champion in every sense of the word, and he brought that same winning mindset to everything he did, whether it was on the court or in a meeting room. He was a force of nature, and the Jordan brand was the physical manifestation of his unwavering will to win. This second career as a business mogul was, in many ways, an extension of his playing days. The same relentless pursuit of perfection that he applied to his fadeaway jump shot, he now applied to product design, marketing strategy, and brand partnerships. He was just as involved in the business as he was in his basketball career, a meticulous and demanding leader who left no detail unexamined. He knew that every single aspect of the brand, from the quality of the materials to the message of the advertisements, had to be perfect because it carried his name and his legacy. He was not content to simply be a figurehead. He was an active and engaged partner, a hands-on CEO who demanded excellence from everyone on his team. This attention to detail and his unwavering commitment to quality was a direct result of the discipline he had built in his early years. He knew that the success of the brand depended on its authenticity, and he made sure that everything it represented was a true reflection of his values. The brand was not just about the shoes. It was about the man who wore them and the story he represented. It was a story of a boy who was told no, and who used that rejection to fuel a journey to greatness. He proved that your past is not a prison. It is the foundation of your future, and that the lessons learned in the fires of your greatest struggles can be applied to every single aspect of your life. This is the enduring message of the Jordan brand, and it is a message that continues to inspire millions of people around the world to this day. Beyond the courts and the boardrooms, Michael Jordan's ultimate legacy lies in his ability to inspire. He transcended the sport of basketball and became a cultural icon, a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to let a single moment of failure define your entire life. His journey from a high school reject to the most iconic figure in sports history became a powerful narrative, a story of hope and resilience that resonated with people from all walks of life. His story is a testament to the fact that our greatest strength can be born from our deepest wounds, and that the person we become is far more important than the circumstances we were born into. He taught us that failure is not the opposite of success, but a crucial part of the journey, and that every setback is simply a setup for a comeback. He showed us that the path to greatness is not always straight or easy, but that the challenges and failures along the way are what shape us into the people we are meant to be. His unwavering belief in himself, even when the world doubted him, is a lesson that is as powerful today as it was in the 1980s. He taught us that we have the power to write a new chapter, to create our own destinies, and to never, ever give up on our dreams. His legacy is not just in the championship banners, but in the millions of people he inspired to believe in themselves and to push past their own limits. His competitive spirit, born from the pain of rejection, was not a fleeting emotion. It was a fundamental force that he applied to every challenge, every partnership, and every business decision he ever made. He had to learn how to lead, how to sell, and how to build an empire from the ground up, all skills he had unknowingly perfected in the quiet solitude of his teenage years, learning to rebound from failure and build a legacy that will last forever. He is, and will forever be, a symbol of resilience and a testament to the power of the human spirit. The boy who was once told no became a man who was incapable of accepting defeat, a man who used his pain as his purpose and his rejection as his redirection. His story is a simple but profound reminder that our biggest failures often hold the keys to our greatest successes. He taught us that the lessons learned from our struggles are far more valuable than the trophies we win, and that true greatness is measured not by how many times we stand on top of the podium, but by how many times we get back up after we've been knocked down. He showed us that the courage to begin again is often the greatest victory of all, and that a new beginning is always possible, no matter how final a setback may feel. His story is not just history. It is a roadmap for anyone who has ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or counted out. He taught us to embrace our struggles, to turn our weaknesses into our strengths, and to never let anyone else's opinion of us define who we are. His life is a living, breathing testament to the fact that you have the power to write your own story, and that the first chapter is just the beginning.